Now, we have some questions from the audience, which we're going to run through. And if we don't have time to answer all the questions now live, we will be sending all the questions which we have answered to the panel, who will come back to you with answers. Now, by coincidence, the first couple of questions I can see are from people who I know very well. In fact, they're former colleagues of myself and Stefan. In fact, the very first question, Robert, you'll be pleased to know, is from one Paul Bowles, who you know quite well. Paul is at FTSE Russell in Canada. And the question from Paul is whether the panel feels that advances in artificial intelligence will enhance, disrupt, or make obsolete today's exchange technology. Robert, starting with you, what do you think?
Well, it was very interesting to hear that one of the lead speakers here at the Abu Dhabi Finance Week said, as a CEO, one should dedicate 30% of one's time to disruption. And that suggests to me that new uses of new tools like artificial intelligence will probably become an important feature of daily life. Thank you.
Stefan?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's about being disruptive and trying to be successful in doing something new and different. And I think AI is a good means to try new technologies in being disruptive.
Yeah. Hamish, got a view on this?
Likewise, absolutely. Yeah. Disruption is almost certainly what it's going to do, as I was mentioning earlier. It's interesting that a couple of years ago, if we were having a similar conversation, it would have been about blockchain, and some of the more extreme views were that it will completely replace the need for clearinghouses and exchanges and all of these institutions. But ultimately, we've been talking about trust quite a lot, actually. And fundamentally, whatever changes goes into technology, it's got to fit in with that fundamental market requirement, which is to create trust.
Blockchain, DLT, its time will come. I know that some of the early projects haven't quite worked out, like in Australia, for example, but it will happen. Now, the second question is from one Tony McCormack, who I guess some of us know quite well, again, ex-Reuters. What effect will DLT, crypto, and tokenization have on traditional exchanges and data vendors? Now, Robert, this is a question close to your heart, I know, because when we met up, I think it was in November, December last year, you were telling myself and or other guest partner that tokens were going to be the future of financial exchanges, tokenization. What's your view on this?
Certainly. Well, let's just define what we mean by the word tokenization. It's really nothing more than the way a depositary receipt or an exchange-traded fund actually work. It allows one to get access to an asset, but it also brings in the ability to fractionalize, to trade smaller components of the asset. It allows one to implement more efficient straight-through processing workflows to therefore save costs and improve workflow productivity. So I actually think a tokenization makes a lot of sense. A lot of the benefits will probably come from the post-trade workflow. It's interesting, and maybe Stefan can comment, it's always been interesting that people have observed how we've been able to increase the speed and lower the latency at the trading layer, even though the clearing and settlement can sometimes still be measured in days. But overall, I think tokenization in terms of helping reduce risk, but increase activity, and the direct link of ownership to the underlying will enable a whole load of new asset classes to come into the straight-through processing workflow that the institutions have already invested in. Thank you very much.
Robert, just to go back on that, will your new exchange, is it going to be based on tokenization, or is that not part of the deal?
No, absolutely. So if you take a look at what Ray Dalio, one of the great fund managers, has said, you know, the ideal portfolio is a series of assets that are uncorrelated. That means when the market drops, all the assets don't drop at the same time. And often institutions will say one of the great uncorrelated assets is real estate, which has an addressable market of $300 trillion by many estimates and growing. And yet real estate is not well served by current electronic banking or stock exchanges because it's mostly analog, very manual, lots of paperwork. The opportunity to tokenize real estate, whether that's land or buildings, and actually to put it in the same straight-through workflow will bring much easier access to institutions. It also means things like funds that can be tokenized with real estate underlyings that if you think about the gating issue where, let's say there's a commercial building within a fund and someone that has a unit says, oh, excuse me, can I redeem my unit because I need to pay some school fees? And the answer is, well, I'm afraid you're going to have to wait 6 months because the fund is gated. If you can actually tokenize that fund and trade the fraction, you can offer the ability to maybe that person accept a discount for the immediacy of cash. So you suddenly enable a lot more choice, not obligation, but choice to investors to help them get their business done. Thank you.
Hamish, are your clients involved in this already?
It's interesting, there are so many analog, and that's a great phrase, analog markets out there, even a lot of traditional OTC markets, where trading is still, literally there are still pieces of paper involved, or more practically perhaps, yes, there's still a spreadsheet somewhere, there might be something that might be written down, but fundamentally, yes, transactions are being done over the phone, by email. And I think we often talk about the concept of digitalization, and we're all using computers in one form or another. We have been since the 80s and certainly the late 1990s in the industry at large. But it's the difference between putting your trades in a spreadsheet and putting your trades in a system that actually logs them, audits them, monitors them, checks what their status is, and is able to feed them through to your post-trade system. And all those things, that's really what then takes trading to that next level. And there is the opportunity in many of these markets, using technology that firms like ourselves provide, to really bring the markets and open them to more investors and also benefit more people more widely.
I guess, Sapan, you don't care whether it's tokens or what. It's all it's data, and provided it's low latency, that's where you come in.
Exactly. But I'm with Robin and Hamish. So I think it's about opening the market for new asset classes, and especially as Rod said, the real estate is one area. I think art is another good example where you could tokenize,
but not NFT tokens. I hope
no. But real art, so paintings and so on. So I think that's where you could create new marketplaces and exchanges for this kind of asset class.
You know, technology is a great enabler. Like everyone now thinks of the FX market as being on screen, but it wasn't always that way. The FX market used to be on the phone. Like if you saw a typical trader in those days, you have like 6, 8, 10 phones on all at once. All of those phones were replaced by a little silver screen about what I think back in 1972, 73. Okay, and that someone had the idea, why don't we electronify this market? That market is now one of the biggest trillions of dollars markets in the world, from the telephone on screen, and it never looked back. Now, Robert, the next question is from someone you know quite well, JP Mine, who I know you know very, very well. And JP's question is, which I think all of you have interested in, faster transactions, more volumes of data, more risk to be managed. Is the technology there to manage all this risk for more and more data? Stefan?
Technology, I think, is only a tool, is only an enabler. You have to manage risk in various facets, in different regulations. So that's something where technology can help you with, but cannot ultimately solve your issue.
Sinara does surveillance systems as well, or implements surveillance?
We built, again, pretty much any kind of system. If you think of the whole trade life cycle, there's obviously risk at every point, and different. You can, it's interesting, if you create a diagram, you can identify the types of risk at almost every stage of that trade life cycle. And yes, technology, there is, to answer the question directly, yes, there is a lot out there. There's a lot that you can use as a starting point. That's companies like ourselves, we use building blocks to help create custom solutions. So yes, we can help you with that, but ultimately that's part of the solution. And ultimately you need to decide, well, how does that fit in with your own processes? Are you actually using it in the right way? You can create a perfect system, but if you aren't actually using it correctly, or not even using the functionality in the best way, then ultimately all that investment isn't really being used in the best way possible.
Well, I know, Robert, things have changed a lot over the years. I remember when we first began to apply things like machine learning, artificial intelligence towards surveillance, that I remember going to the London Stock Exchange when the surveillance was being done by human beings, like most of them former policemen, who said, we don't have any use for this technology, you know, we know who all the bad guys are. Seriously. But Robert, going back to JP's question, is all that risk manageable as we have faster and faster transactions, more and more of it? Is it manageable?
Well, firstly, I think we need to recognize that when we talk about trading modalities, one size doesn't fit all, and the ability to provide a choice of trading mechanisms that can be more useful in different economic microenvironments can help investors get their business done. But ultimately, to answer JP's question, which is a very good one, providing a level playing field, managing risk, and also communicating well in the event of a glitch to make sure that markets are managed in a smooth way to get them back up, it really requires a culture. And I think all of us were touching on the fact that technology are tools, very important tools, but you do need the human condition to be involved, to be aware, to have governance, to take accountability and responsibility of what's done, to understand the tools so they can be wielded in the most efficient way. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Now we have time just for one more question. And Paul Bowes is a glutton for punishment. And his question again is around blockchain technology. That will this technology disrupt or replace traditional exchanges? I mean, again, we've seen a few experiments in terms of surveillance, but we haven't seen any blockchain-based exchanges, have we, Robert? Or am I wrong in that aspect? Do you know of any exchanges working off block? I guess it will happen. If it hasn't happened already, it will happen.
Well, I think what's special about blockchain, if you listen to the definition of it, it is a database that is immutable, that is often in a distributed basis. Now, you can have a distributed database that's still permissioned or made public. I feel that, in my humble opinion, many of today's existing institutions like a permissioned model because then they know where to go, who to speak to when something goes wrong. But in my humble view, where the distributed ledger technology will really provide some differentiation is the fact that you can have activity cross-border and have one version of truth while recognizing that many national competent authorities are very country-specific in their locus, and they may often want a technology box within their own country's borders. But you can still have a global market, as we've learned from smart order routing technology and other low latency systems that our colleagues, Stefan and Hamish, can talk to, where you can have multiple physical puddles, but one virtual pool of liquidity. I think the distributed ledger will do for the post-trade world in particular settlement, one version of the truth, no matter where anything is trading, where that every one of those national competent authorities or anyone that's looking into the blockchain or the distributed ledger can actually see that single version of truth. And that should add for further confidence on the global market stage. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. Stefan?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think when it comes to local and national technologies, I don't see blockchain in that sense and that importance. When it comes to the cross-border exchange and their blockchain could play an important role.
Hamish, any views on this?
In blockchain, from a fundamentals of engineering software point of view, it's an amazing technology. It solves certain problems. Ultimately, it's about how it's implemented, whether it actually provides a genuine advantage over more traditional types of databases. But again, from the business angle, as Robert and Stefan have been discussing, finding a model where that actually provides a real differentiation from what exchanges do at present.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time we have today. So I'd like to thank our panelists, Robert Barnes in UAE, Stefan here in London, and Hamish also in London. There will be a recording of the webinar, which will be made available in the next few days. But thanks to everyone. Thanks to our audience, and thanks to our panelists. Thanks for your time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.